Good morning, I'm Kasturi Manikam. We begin in the Chinese capital, where the authorities are holding a press conference on implementing major fiscal decisions from the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
国务院新闻办公室今天举行
Today,
全卫部门化开局的
we are
系列主
holding
题新闻发布会的第5场。
the fifth of our
我
series
们
of
荣幸地邀请
press
到
conferences
财政部部长刘坤先
on the
生
Chinese economy. Today, we
为
have
大家
with
介
us
绍
Minister Liu Kun of
财
the
政
Finance
贯彻
Ministry
落实
to brief
党
you
的20大
on how the
重大
ministry has
决策
been
部署的情
implementing
况，
the important
并回答各位关心
instructions
的问
of
题。
the 20th CPC National
与刘部长一
Congress.
起
He will
出席
also address your
今天新闻
questions.
发布会的两
Together
位副
with
部长
Minister
是
Liu, we also have
许
two
宏才先
vice
生、
ministers,
朱忠民先生。
Minister Xu and Minister Zhong
下
Zhu.
面我们先请
Now,
刘坤
let
先
me
生介
pass
绍
the
情况。
floor to Minister Liu.
女士们、先生们、朋友们，
Ladies and gentlemen, dear
早上好。
friend, good
很
morning.
高兴在全
It's
国
a
两
great
会
pleasure
前与大家面对
To
面
have
交
this
流。
face-to-face
首先，我
meeting
代
with
表
you
财政
before
部
the two
感谢
sessions.
各位记者
On
朋
behalf
友
of the ministry, I
长
wish
期
to
以来
thank you all
对财政事业的
for your
关心
support
和
for
支持。
our fiscal work.
借此机会，我向大家简要
Today,
介
I'm
绍
going to share with you some
2022年的
basic
财政工作
information
情况。
about the fiscal work in
2022
2022.
年是党和国家
2022 has been an important year, a very important year in the history of the party and the country. The 20th CPC National Congress drew up a great blueprint for building a moderately prosperous society in all
以习近
respects.
平同志为核心的党中央，
The CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, united and led the whole party and people in overcoming difficulties, increasing the quality of
保
development
持了
and
经济社
maintaining
会大局
the
稳定。
stability of the
习近
economy
平
and
总书记
society.
在2022年
At
4月
the
29日
Political Bureau
的
meeting of the
中共
CPC
中央
Central
政治局会
Committee
议上
on
强调，
April the 29th, 2022, General Secretary Xi Jinping stressed that it is important to intensify macro regulation, keep economy stable, and achieve the annual targets for the economy and society.
在党中央
Under
集
the
中统一领导
centralized
下，
unified leadership of the CPC Central Committee, the fiscal system thoroughly implemented the instructions of the 20th CPC National Congress, upheld the general approach of seeking progress while maintaining stability, fully, faithfully applied the new development philosophy on all fronts, moved faster to develop a new development paradigm, and front-loaded the various fiscal policies to promote
全
economic
国
rebound.
一般公共预
The
算
total
收入
budgetary revenue for the year was
20.37
20.37 trillion yuan,
比2021
up
年增
by
长0.6%。
0.6% year-on-year over 2021, and the total budgetary expenditure was 26.06 trillion yuan, up by 6.1% year-on-year, providing the necessary fiscal support for fighting the pandemic and growing the economy.
一是
First of
加
all,
大
we
财政政策的
made
实施力度，
stronger use of fiscal policies to stabilize the general economy.
加大财政资源统
We
筹，
stepped up overall coordination in the use of government funds to maintain the necessary
既扩大
intensity,
国内总
to
需求，
increase the aggregate demand, and at the same time maintain reasonable deficit, which has been below 3% for the past 5 years. This has given us
为
the
应对新的困难
policy
挑战
space
预
to
留
deal
政策
with
空间，
new challenges
落
and
实
difficulties.
落细
We
主
thoroughly
责
implemented
税会
the
支
tax
持
and fee
政策
package policies
前年
in support of the
新
economy.
增
For the year,
减税降
tax
费
refund and
及
tax
退
and
税
fee
返
cuts and
税返
deferrals
税
amounted
超
to
过
over
4.2万亿
4.2 trillion
推
yuan,
动我国
bringing down
税收收
tax
入占
as a
GDP 的比重
share of GDP from
从2018年的
17% in
17%
2018
下降到
to
2022
13.8% in
13.8%
2022.
加快地方
We
政府
accelerated
专项债
the
券
issuance
发
and
行
use
使用
of
依法
local
盘
government
活
special
用
purpose
好
bonds
专项
and
债务
lawfully and
截止
fully
现额
utilized the unused
5069
quota of 502.9 billion
财政
yuan
宏
of
观
local
调控
government
有力有
special
效
purpose bonds.
促进
The regulation has been robust and effective and contributed to a stable economy. Second, we intensified funding and policy support to keep good functioning at the township level. In the past year, the fiscal health of township-level governments has been a priority in our work. We step up funds and policy support to solidify the governments at this level. Over the year, the central government transfer payment to local governments was 9.71 trillion yuan, an increase of 1.42 trillion, up by 17.1%. In the past 5 years, the total transfer payment was 40.66 trillion yuan, an annual average increase of 8.4%, providing strong support for local governments to meet the people's essential needs, payroll payments, and day-to-day functioning. We expanded the scope of direct funding, bringing it from 1.7 trillion yuan in 2020 to 4.1 trillion last year. Generally, township levels have been functioning well, and they become part of the strong foundation for a good economy and society. Third, we promoted innovation-driven development and stable industrial and supply chains. In 2022, the total science and technology expenditure was 1.0023 trillion yuan, up by 3.8% year-on-year, providing a strong guarantee for basic research and the R&D of critical technologies in key fields. On the other hand, we also improved our policy support. We raised the additional tax deduction ratio for R&D spending by SMEs to 100%. We improved the government procurement policies that favor innovation. We implemented temporary fiscal subsidies for domestic passenger flights and supported a number of national cargo hubs to extend and bolster their chains and strengthen the resilience of supply industrial chains. Fourth, we promoted rural revitalization and the balanced development between regions and urban and rural areas. Committed to a new development philosophy, we used transfer payments, fiscal and taxation policies to promote balanced regional development and between urban and rural areas. We provided 40 billion yuan of subsidies in 3 batches to grain producers. And out of the central government reserve funds, we used 10 billion to help fight drought, natural disasters, and ensure a good autumn harvest. The central government allocated more funds for combined efforts to reduce poverty and revitalize rural areas. We helped implement the major regional development strategies and stepped up support in transfer payment to the vulnerable areas, which saw an increase of 8.2%. Fifth, we helped to meet the people's basic needs and increase their welfare. Putting the people first, we tried to the best of our fiscal capacity to meet their essential needs, especially providing the basic and inclusive services support. We stepped up funding for pandemic control to reduce its shock to people's life and work. We increased outlays in livelihood areas such as education, social security, employment, and healthcare, as well as fighting pollution in air, water, and soil, and cleaning up the rural environment. The outlay has saw an increase of 5.5%, 8.1%, 17.8%, 13.8% respectively. Compared with the levels of 2017, the average low-income insurance standard in urban and rural areas increased by 39.2% and 62.4% respectively, and the average fiscal subsidy standards for basic medical insurance increased from 450 yuan to 610 yuan. Sixth, we deepened reform of the fiscal and taxation system and achieved great results in supervision. Fiscal and accounting supervision is an important part of the national supervision system. We deepened reform in this sector, rolled out guiding opinions on reforming the fiscal and taxation system at and below provincial levels, promoted integrated management of the budget, fulfilled our principal responsibility in supervision, strengthened the overall system, made clear the focus of our work, and tightened discipline, which has seen more efficient fiscal governance. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 2023 is the beginning year of implementing these instructions of the 20th CPC National Congress. The ministry will take it as an important political task to thoroughly implement the instructions of the Congress, keenly understand the decisive significance of the two establishes, to enhance our full awareness and our confidence in 4 areas, and stay committed to uphold to better fight the pandemic and keep economic and society stable, to promote quality development and appropriate increase in quantity. We will help promote supply side structural reform, expand domestic demand, and better coordinate economic and other policies, better coordinate domestic and international circulation, and better coordinate our short-term and long-term goals to intensify our fiscal policies and make it more efficient for a better economy and contribute to the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects. So this is my opening remark. Now I'm ready for your questions. Thank you. Now the floor is open for questions. Please identify your media affiliation before asking your questions. Thank you. Recently, international agencies, including the UN, have been upgrading their forecast for the Chinese economy, believing that China has enough fiscal space to support growth. At the Central Economic Work Conference, it was also said that the proactive fiscal policy in 2023 will be stronger and more efficient, and to enhance market expectations. So how will the fiscal policy be stronger, and how will it be more efficient? Thank you for your question. At last year's Central Economic Work Conference, there was a clear guidance on the exercise of fiscal policy. General Secretary Xi Jinping stressed that we need to maintain stability, seek progress while maintaining stability, continue to implement proactive fiscal policy and prudent monetary policy, and fiscal policy should be stronger and more efficient. This means that we will stick to the general approach of seeking progress while maintaining stability. We'll balance between what is needed and what is possible, the short-term and long-term, and development and security. Now, the Chinese economy is not yet firmly established for recovery. There is shrinking demand, supply shocks, and weakening expectations. And we also face a volatile external environment. In response, we need to step up macro fiscal regulation, improve our policy package, support quality growth, and also ensure fiscal sustainability and that local government debt risks are under control. To be stronger, it means we need to appropriately expand our fiscal policies. There are 3 aspects.
The first is boosting fiscal spending. The national general public budget expenditure last year was 26.06 trillion yuan. This year, fiscal revenue, fiscal deficits, and interest subsidies will be used to expand fiscal spending as appropriate. The second is boosting the role of special purpose bonds in driving investment. A proper amount of special purpose bonds will be issued by local governments, invested in more areas and used more widely as capital funds, providing sustained driving force for investment. The third is boosting the delivery of funds to local governments. Transfer payments from the central government to local governments will be increased, with priority given to regions in difficulty and underdeveloped regions, so as to secure spending for people's basic needs, wage payments, and functioning of local governments. As for making the fiscal policy more effective, on the one hand, preferential tax and fee policies will be made more targeted to help companies in difficulty. On the other hand, The structure of fiscal spending will be improved to leverage the catalytic role of fiscal funds in spurring total investment and promoting consumption. Meanwhile, coordination with monetary, industrial, technological, and social policies will be boosted to form synergy for the overall improvement of economic performance. The proactive fiscal policy entails a great deal, and here I want to stress 5 priorities. First, improving tax and fee support policies to ease the difficulty of enterprises, taking into account both the needs of companies and fiscal capacity. Tax and fee cut measures will be further improved, with an emphasis on supporting micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, self-employed households, and industries in serious difficulties, to reduce the burden of enterprises and give a boost to their development. Second, strengthening the coordination of fiscal resources and maintain the necessary intensity of spending. Funds will be concentrated on major tasks, and the mix of policy tools will be improved. More will be invested in laying the foundation, producing long-term benefits, shoring up weak links, and making structural adjustments, and fiscal capacity ensured for major national strategic tasks. Third, improving the structure and boosting the efficiency of spending. Party and government bodies will keep their belts tightened and spending low to benefit the people. Active support will be provided to scientific and technological research, rural revitalization, education, and green development. The special transfer payment mechanism will be improved to promote the standardized and efficient use of fiscal funds. Fourth, balancing the fiscal capacity among different regions and promoting equitable access to basic public services. Transfer payments from the central government to local governments will be boosted to enhance fiscal support for localities. Reform in fiscal systems below the provincial level will be advanced, and the mechanism of long-term fiscal guarantee at the county level will be improved. A system of standards for basic public service guarantee will be advanced. Fifth, strictly enforcing fiscal discipline and preventing risks. Fiscal revenue and spending will be strictly regulated, and the monitoring system improved. Illegal borrowing will be curbed. The growth of hidden debts will be checked, and existing debt properly dealt with. Efforts will be made to ensure no systemic risks arise. Thank you.
Good morning. A question from Reuters. Due to the decrease in land transfer revenue, the guarantee of anti-epidemic expenditure and infrastructure expenditure, and the pressure of debt concentration and maturity, some local governments are facing a tight fiscal balance. How does the Ministry of Finance view this situation? Thank you.
请翻译一下。
您好，我是路透社的记者。由于土地出让收入减少，保证抗疫支出和基建支出，叠加债务集中到期压力，一些地方政府面临财政紧平衡状况。请问财政部如何看待这种情况？
您这个问题啊，这个包含了不少小的问题在内。
This question in fact includes a number of smaller questions. Thank you.
首先呢，我想向各位记者朋友啊，通报
Let me first share with you the information about our budgetary revenue and expenditure last year.
关注到地方财力的这个地方一般预算收入的下降的情况。
In 2022, the general budgetary revenue of local governments was 10.88 trillion yuan, up by 5.9% after VAT rebate, and general expenditure was 22.5 trillion yuan, up by 6.4%. So local governments generally maintained smooth fiscal operations, as we continue to optimize our pandemic control policies and the package for stabilizing the economy and the follow-up measures continue to be released, the Chinese economy will continue its rebound and local government will see better fiscal conditions. I believe that in your question there are three smaller questions to be addressed. The first is about the sales of state-owned land use rights. This is regulated as China's government-managed funds. It is a main source of the government-managed funds budget. Part of it is used as a general budget, accounting for about 15% of the government-managed funds at local levels. There was a decline to some extent last year, but its impact on the budget expenditure was under control. We are still waiting for the final accounts to have the concrete figures, but if we put the decline roughly at 2 trillion yuan, we'll see that its impact on the budget of local governments was about 300 billion yuan. We must be also reminded that this is an indicator of gross income because with the declining of the sales, the cost expenditure of demolition will also be going down. Because you see there is an interplay between revenue and expenditure, so its actual impact on the expenditure is not that significant. On the maturity of debts, last year China's statutory debt ratio was about 50%. When you look at the situation in other economies, this is quite a low level, which gives us the capacity to manage the risks. The problem is that the debts are not evenly distributed. In some areas, local governments face greater risks and pressure in meeting their principal and interest obligations. We are urging the relevant local authorities to fulfill their leading responsibilities, resolve the risks, and hold firm the bottom line of avoiding systemic risks. We are confident that we can do that. On the balance of local government fiscal book, between 2020 and 2022, the budgetary revenue increased by 2.5% annually on average. Last year, it dropped by 2.1%. So there was a tight balance, like you said. This drop of 2.1% is a few percentage points lower than the 10-year average. But the fiscal capacity of local governments is not the same thing as their budgetary revenue. 40% of their fiscal capacity comes from the direct transfer payments from the central government. In the past 3 years, this has been increasing by 9.3% each year on average. And I also cited the figure for the 5-year average in the past 5 years. So you can see that we are increasing the transfer payments from the central government. This 9.3% is 6.8 percentage points higher than the general public budget revenue of local governments. So it can make up for the insufficient revenue at their local level. In terms of budget execution, we can see that local government's expenditure increased by 3.4% on average in the past 3 years. So indeed, there is a tight balance, but it is also growing in quantity and execution is in good condition. Thank you.
中区第2排这位女士。
谢谢主持人。21世纪经济报道记者提问。在有效带动扩大全社会投资方面，财政资金往往有四两拨千斤的作用。然后地方政府专项债券作为一个重要的抓手，今年的规模是否会增加？然后重点将投向哪些领域？您刚刚也提到说让资金早使用条件效。
this year, and what areas will they go to?
让信用财副部长来答。
好的，这个谢谢你的提问。地方政府专项债券。
Thank you for your question. Special purpose bonds issued by local governments are an important means to spur effective investment and stabilize the macroeconomy. Since 2018, 14.6 trillion yuan of such bonds have been issued. In 2022, more than 4 trillion yuan of such bonds were issued to support a number of projects.
盘活专项债限额空间这个2个部分，支持了约3万个重点项目建
A
设。
total of around 30,000 key projects were supported.
发挥了强基
These
础、补
projects
短
have
板、为民
contributed
生
to strengthening
或
the
投资
foundation,
的
shoring up
作用，
weak links,
有力的
improving
支
livelihoods,
撑
and boosting
经济
investment,
社会发展。
providing strong boost and support for
今年
economic and social
积极
development.
财政政策
This year,
要加力
the
提效，
proactive fiscal policy will be
中
stepped
央
up and
经
its
济工作会议
effectiveness
要求
enhanced.
优化组合
The
赤字
Central Economic
专项
Work
债
Conference
TC
has
等工
decided
具，
to improve the
在
mix
有
of
效
policy
支
tools,
持高质
which
量发展
include
中
special purpose bonds,
保障财政
and
可
while
持续
supporting high-quality
和地方
development
政府
to
债
ensure
务风险可控。
fiscal sustainability
我
and
们
that
将
the debt risks of
认
local
真贯
governments
彻
can
落
be
实中
manageable.
央经济
We
经济
will
工作会议
earnestly
精神，
deliver
合
on
理安排
the
专项
decisions
债
of
券
the
的规模，
conference and
确保政府投
set
资力
the,
度
a proper
不减，
scale of the bonds to ensure that
更好地发
the
挥
intensity of government
适量
investment will be
不牵引
maintained
的
and
带动作用。
the bonds can
有关具
play
体的
its
额度的
catalytic
安
role.
排，在这个人代会议上会这个对外披露。
The
记
scale
者
of
朋
the
友刚
bonds
才还
will be
关心
disclosed
这个
soon.
投向和
You
领域
also
的问
asked
题。
about the areas of
那么23
investment.
年呢，我们将在
This year,
现在的重点
In
支持
addition
的
to
11个
the
领域
existing
的
11
基础上，
areas,
适量的扩大资
we
金
will
的投
expand
向的
as
领域
appropriate
和
the areas of
用
investment
作
and
项目资本金的范
the
围，
scope of capital
持
funds.
续加力重点项目
We
建
will
设，
continue to strengthen the
形成
construction
实
of
务
key
工作量
projects to generate
和
more
投
physical
资
gains
的
and
拉动力，
drivers of investment
有效的支持
so as to help
高质量发展。
bring about
这些工作
high
呢，后续
quality
呢都会
development.
一并部署和安排。
More
谢谢。
will be arranged in this regard.
下
Thank
一个
you.
问题，中区第5排那位穿白衬衣的女士。
好，谢谢主持人。中国证券报记者提问：不久前，财政部发布了会计信息质量检查公告，170多家会计事务所
The
受到
ministry
处
released
罚。
a
我们感觉
report
财政
on
对社会审计的监督力
accounting
度越来越
financial
大了。
supervision.
财经
We
纪
are
律的
seeing
红
that
线
the
越来越
efforts
清
have been
晰。请问
intensified
财
to
政部
ensure the red line
今
is
年
not
在严
crossed.
肃财经纪律
What
方面
does the
有哪
ministry
些
have
具
in
体
mind
考
to
虑？谢谢。
tighten fiscal
这个问题
discipline
我想让杜忠明副部长来回答。
Let me give the floor to
好的，
Vice
感
Minister
谢这位
Zhu.
记者对财会监督工作的关注。
Thank you for your interest
党
in
中央、
this
国务
area
院
of work.
高度重视
The
财会监督
CPC
工
Central
作。
Committee and State
习近平
Council
总书记
places high importance on
多
this
次
field
对
of
严
work.
肃财
General
经纪律
Secretary Xi Jinping
开展
has
财会监督工作
given
重
important
要指
instructions
示
on
批示
several occasions.
财政部认
The
真贯彻
ministry
落
has
实
been
习近平
thoroughly
总书记重要
implementing
指示批示
these
精神，
important
切实履行
instructions,
财会监督的主责，
fulfilling its leading
强化财
responsibility,
经纪律的约
tightening
束，在推进全
discipline,
面从严治党，
and
规范
playing an
财经
important
秩
role
序，
in
促进
promoting
经济
strict
社会
governance
高
of
质
the
量方面
party, regulating the
发挥了
fiscal
重要
and
的作用。
financial order, and promoting
近
high
日，
quality
中央办公
development of the
厅、
economy
国
and
务院办公
society.
厅
Recently,
印发了
the General
关于
Office of the
进一步加
CPC and
强财
and
会监
State
督工作的
Council
意见，
issued
对构建
opinions
财
on
会监督
further
体系，
strengthening fiscal and
健全
accounting
工作机
supervision,
制，
setting
搭
up
建
the
了
general
财会监督
framework
的4两拨千。
of this
对
field
于
of
推
work.
动新时代
This
财
is
会
very
监督工
important
作，
for carrying out fiscal and accounting supervision and tightening discipline in the new era. The Ministry will firmly implement the guiding opinions, discharging our duty, building the system, tighten the discipline, adopt zero tolerance toward all violations to make sure the discipline is executed. We are going to work in 3 priority areas in our special campaign in 2023. First of all, we will ensure that the major decisions of the CPC Central Committee and State Council are put into practice. This will be our primary job. We will resolutely handle all violations that go against the decisions of the central government, the requirements of governance, and affect economic and social development. Second, we will strengthen the discipline we will implement fiscal and taxation policies, enhance frugality in state and party organs, and strengthen local government functioning. These will be our priority areas. And third, we will crack down on all violations in fiscal and accounting activities. We will be thorough in our efforts, plug holes, use rigorous punishments to clean up the conduct, to strengthen our supervision of accounting information and intermediaries, and tackle financial fraud. Like you mentioned, the fiscal system has punished over 170 accounting firms last year. This is more than the combination of the past 3 years. This year, we are going to intensify our efforts. The Ministry will conduct reviews of 35 accounting firms and 10 asset evaluation agencies, and the fiscal departments in various localities will also have extensive reviews to uncover issues and resolutely handle these issues. They will also expose the problems and typical cases to make sure that the discipline is honored and executed. Thank you.
好，下一个问题，中间第2排那位男士。
谢谢主持人澎湃新闻记者提问。刚才刘部长介绍了去年我国全国减税降费超过了4.2万亿元，创了历史新高。那么，请问这些减税降费的红包在今年如何延续？
How will the beneficial policies of tax and fee cuts be carried out this year?
您刚才问的那个减税降费的问题，那我想这个还是请朱东林那个副部长继续回答。
I will ask Vice Minister Zhu to take this question.
Thank
you. In 2022, facing the triple pressures of demand contraction, supply shock, and weakening expectations, the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, with the big picture in mind, made the sound decision to improve macro regulation and resolutely implemented a mix of tax and fee support policies, which strengthened market entities and promoted economic recovery. Looking over the past year, the policies have the following 3 features. First, they come in great intensity. New tax and fee cuts and deferrals last year exceeded 4.2 trillion yuan, among which about 2.46 trillion yuan was value-added tax or VAT refunds, more than 3.8 times that of the amount in 2021. This is the greatest intensity seen in recent years. Second, the policies were front-loaded. The scope of large-scale VAT refunds was expanded, and most of them were delivered in the first half of the year. Refund of existing VAT credits was completed in the second quarter, which is ahead of schedule. So the policies were introduced swiftly, and they delivered results early on. Third, there is much more synergy and coordination among policies. A package of policies such as exemption of VAT for small-scale taxpayers, phased deferral of social insurance premium payments, and reduction of some passenger vehicle purchase tax were introduced to ease the difficulty of the recipients. The tax and fee cuts directly addressed the difficulties of market entities and brought much-needed relief to them. The outcome is quite significant. Last year, for the 100,000 key tax source enterprises across China, the tax burden per 100 yuan of revenue dropped 2.7%. And as the minister just mentioned, China's tax-to-GDP ratio last year dropped to 13.8%. That's excluding the large-scale VAT rebates. Then the tax burden would be about 15%. So the companies had more cash flow, enhanced development vitality, and greater resilience against risks and challenges. This year, we will continue to leverage the role of tax and fee policies to support the enterprises and to maintain stable economic performance. We will, taking into account fiscal capacity and the needs of the enterprises, decide on the policies and make sure that they are thoroughly implemented. First, we will implement well the existing policies. We will continue to implement the tax and fee reduction policies that have been clearly defined and take concrete steps to reduce the tax and fees that should be reduced. Meanwhile, we will resolutely crack down on tax evasion and tax fraud and curb arbitrary fees. Second, we will work to improve the preferential policies. Current measures, such as tax and fee cuts and tax refunds and deferrals, will be continued or improved as necessary to deliver more benefits to market entities. Third, we will make the policies more targeted, highlighting support for MSMEs, self-employed households, and industries in serious difficulties to boost their momentum and vitality.
谢谢。我是日本共同社的质量提问。从宏观经济的观点来说，
From a macroeconomic policy, it is important to expand domestic demand, domestic consumption. What policies will be particularly important in this area? And the purchase subsidy for new energy vehicles has been suspended. What other fiscal policies will be introduced to encourage domestic consumption? Let me give the floor to Vice Minister Xu. This is indeed a very important question because consumption is a critical engine driving growth. It is also the final end of production. The report to the 20th CPC National Congress has made it clear that it's important to strengthen the foundational role of consumption in growth. The central government also made it clear that we need to prioritize the expansion and the strength restoration of consumption. In the past few years, final consumption has contributed to over 60% of economic growth in China. But due to the impact of COVID, consumption has been growing at a slower pace. This is also one of the important reasons for a slower overall growth of the Chinese economy. To promote economic rebound and sustained and healthy development, we still need to leverage the role of consumption and make it a key driving force of the economy as it was in the past few years. To encourage consumption and release the potential for consumption, we need to tackle the lack of confidence, conditions, and desire in consumption. The fiscal system will fully implement the strategy for expanding domestic demand in order to leverage the foundational role of consumption and improve our policies. We will work in the three areas to release the potential of consumption and to promote an early rebound and upgrade of consumption. First of all, we will increase household incomes through various channels so that the general public have the means for consumption. We will try every way possible to expand employment so as to create more labor income. We will strengthen support for social security and step up transfer payment
提高中低收入居民的消费能
to
力，
increase the capacity of middle and lower income groups for
同时呢
consumption.
完善税费
We
优惠
will
政策，
improve
激
our
发
preferential
社会
tax
消费
and
潜
fee
力，
policies to encourage more society-wide consumption.
支持
Second,
增加
we will
适销对
support
路
the
商
supply
品供给，
of competitive
让老百姓
goods
乐于
so
消
that the
费。
people have options in
通
consumption.
过实施积极
We
财政政策，
will exercise
推
a
进
proactive fiscal
供给侧
policy,
结构性改革，
promote supply-side
不断
structural
提升
reform,
国内供给质量水平，
enhance
激
better
活
quality
市场
supply
需求潜能，
in order to
鼓励
unlock
有条件
the
的地方
potential.
通
We
过
will
现有的资
encourage
金渠道，
local governments with the
对家
means
电以旧换
to
新、绿色
subsidize
智能家电下乡等
smart
等予以
and
支持。
green home appliances.
对于购置期
And
在
for the new
2023
energy
年的新能
vehicles
源汽车
bought in 2023, we will continue
车辆
to
购置税，
exempt the vehicle purchase
降低
tax. We are going to lower
优质消费品
import tariffs
进口
for
关税，
some quality consumer
推动
goods
加快建
and
立
work faster to build a housing supply system
建立多
in
主
which
体
there
供
are
给
multiple
多渠
suppliers,
道
multiple channels
保
of
障
supply,
租
and
客
both
并不在
rental
做
and for sale units are on offer.
支持刚性和改
We
善性
will
住房需求，
support
积
people
极促
to
进
people's need
居民消
for
费。
housing and improved housing.
三是呢，促进销售
Third,
渠道和
we
物流
will
畅通，
strengthen
让老百
the
姓
channels for
方便消费。
marketing and logistics to make it more
支持实
convenient
施
for consumption.
先予
We will improve the
商业
business
建
and
设
commercial
行动，
environment at the
促进
township
先
level
予消费，
to encourage
扩容
greater
聚集
and better consumption
支
in
持
these areas.
农产品
We will support
供
the
应链体
development
系建
of
设，
the supply chain
扩大
system of agricultural
农产品的
produce
消
to
费市场，
expand the market for
支持一批
the
国
products,
家
and will also
综合
support the construction of
货
a
运
number
枢纽
of
建设，
national
推动
cargo
物流
hubs to
降本提效。
reduce the cost and
主要就是这样的
enhance the
一些措施。谢
efficiency
谢。
of logistics. Thank you.
下一个问题，前排这位男士。
谢谢主持人，来自中新社。就是大家呢都很关心今年的财政收支形势，你能不能做一个简要的
Yes, there is
分析？
great interest
另
in
外
the
这种
general
财政收支形势
revenue and
会不会影
expenditure
响
this
今
year.
年民生
Can you
保障
share with us more information and how will the ministry ensure livelihood expenditure?
您问了一个大家都很关心的
Yes,
问题。
I see there's a lot of interest on this
从
question.
今年的财政收支的形势看呢，
This year,
这个综合
looking at the
分析判断
revenue
今
and
年经济
expenditure,
是我认为是
we
总
can
体
see
是
that
回升态势。
there is a
那体现
upward
在财政收
momentum.
入上，就有两个方面的因素了，一个是经济回升。
In terms of more revenue, we are now seeing economic rebound, which will help us bring in more revenue. And there is also the low base effect from extensive VAT refund last year. So, due to these two factors, fiscal revenue have a good foundation for restorative growth. But we are also aware that the foundation for economic recovery is not yet firmly established, and the fiscal revenue still faces uncertainties. So this is on the revenue side. It is going to increase, but perhaps not by a very large margin.
当然，这个总体，刚才杜忠明副部长也介绍了，将来呢，中国税负的水平应该在15%左右，这个水平。
Tax burden is not very high compared with the worldwide level, about 15%, as was said earlier. In terms of expenditure, we are going to see increased spending in science and technology, rural revitalization, environmental protection, in old age care, education, and medical and health care, and also in coordinating the regional development and smooth functioning at the township level. We are also going to maintain the necessary intensity in transfer payment. So in 2023, we still face challenges in fiscal revenue and expenditure, but we will not compromise our spending on people's livelihood. Instead, we are going to try our best to increase our spending on livelihood, to promote the people's interests, and to deliver tangible results so that they have a stronger sense of fulfillment, more happiness, and a stronger sense of security. First of all, we are going to continue to implement the employment-first strategy to make good use of the central government fiscal subsidy for employment to help ease enterprise burden, stabilize job opportunities. We will support the employment of the youth, especially college graduates, and help the key population groups such as migrant workers and ex-service people to start their own business or get employed, and support vocational skills training to ease the structural problems in employment. Second, we will ensure education as a priority. In the past 5 years, we have invested 21 trillion yuan in education, and we are going to continue to strengthen these institutions for education input. For many years, we have maintained over 4% of our GDP in our education input. And tax as a share of GDP has been declining in the past years. Tax is the main source of revenue, while it is falling as a share, and at the same time we are maintaining input in education. So that means in the past few years, education input as a share of our expenditure has been increasing. We're going to help prop up the weak links in education, ensure the supply of inclusive preschool education resources, and improve the conditions of ordinary senior high schools. Third, we're going to help to enhance medical and healthcare service provision. This include better pandemic control, better institutions for fundraising for basic medical insurance, reform of public hospitals, and provincial level unified management of basic medical insurance. Fourth, we will increase social security. We will carry out nationwide unified management of basic old age insurance of retirees, promote the retired pension for individuals, support policy support for childbirths, and in response to population aging, and support people's need for housing and improved housing. On the basic old age pension of retirees, I was asked this question previously here. I said that no matter in which part of the country and from which company you retire, your basic old age pension will be insured. In the last 2 years, we have kept our promise. And basic old age pension was supported. Fifth, we will continue to improve the environment to protect and restore damages to the natural environment, to ensure we have blue skies, clean waters, and pollution-free soil, and promote the green and low-carbon transition of key industries and areas. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。新华社记者提问：政府迫紧日子，即时应时之举也是长久之计。想问一下，中央财政将如何继续落实好党政机关要坚持迫紧日子要求？
你问了一个很好的问题。
This is a very good
近
question.
年来，各级财政部门始终把艰苦奋斗、勤俭节
Operating
约
within
作
one's
为
means
财政
and
工作指导
economizing
方
where
针，
possible have been the
坚
guiding
持
principle
党政
for
机关
finance
过去指
departments
示不动摇，
at every level. We
仅
have
是通
indeed
过提高
been
资
working
金
to
的
keep our
有
belts
效性来实
tightened.
现。
This is realized
以中央
by
努力，
increasing the
中央
efficiency
部
of
门带
funds
头严格
used.
支出管理，
Take the central
一般
government
性
as
支
an
出
example.
连续4年
The
压
central
减。
government takes the lead
2022
in
年
strict
中央
expenditure
部门支出
management.
预算
General
安排也
expenditure
下
have
降
been
了
steadily
2.1%。
reduced for 4 years straight.
这个
In
实际执行中
2022,
下降了
the central government's
3.5%。
spending budget dropped
把钱花在
2.1%,
刀
and
刃
in
上，
actual implementation,
重点支出
3.5%.
的保障反而是强化的。习近
We
平
have
总书
actually
记指
stepped up
出，
support
艰苦
for
奋斗、勤
spending in
俭节
key
约
areas
不仅是
by
我们一路走来
concentrating
发
the
展
funds
壮大的重要保
where they are
证，
needed the most.
也是我们
General
继
Secretary
往
Xi
开
Jinping
来
pointed
再
out
创
that
辉
hard
煌
work
的
and
重要保
frugality
证
have。 contributed to our
这
past
告诫我
development
们，
and growth
政
and will
府
help
不
us
仅
break new
是
ground and achieve
不
more
是短期
successes.
应对
This
措施，
reminds us that
而是
keeping
应
our
该
belts
长
tightened
期
is not a
坚持
short-term
的方
measure,
针政策，
but a policy to keep
要压减开支，
for the
腾
long
出
run.
更多财政资源，
We must
支持地
continue
方
to keep our belts
保基本
tightened
民生，
and free up
保
more funds
市场主体，
to help local governments
以政府过紧日子，
support
换
basic
老百姓
people's
过
needs
好日
and
子。
market entities.
在财政的实践上，
By keeping our belts
你
tightened,
行
we
政
can
性
ensure
的
that
费
the
用
people
3
live a
公斤
better
费
life.
你增加了，你用于民生的保障的支出就减少了。
If the
这个
government
中
spends
央
more,
本级
that
的经
means
费
less funds
这个
will go
增加了，
to improving people's
用于
livelihood.
对地方转移支付的资金就少。
In the past 5 years,
所以
transfer
说，
payments from
我
the
们
central
在这
government
方
to
面
local
做文章，
governments totaled 40.66 trillion yuan.
疫情3年来，全国的财政收支的平衡，
This
把
has
钱用
ensured
在
a
刀
balanced
刃上，
fiscal
花出
book
效果来。
over the past
实
3
际上
years.
情况是好的。这个全国的财政的保障
If you
程
look at
度，
the
并没有
whole
受到
country's situation,
这种一些地方
it has
收入
not been
下降的
affected
影响，
by
特别
the
是基层财
decreasing
政。刚才我已经介
fiscal
绍了
revenue in some localities.
财政部门将始终牢记习总书记的嘱托，
We will always
继
bear
续
in mind
严
General
格落
Secretary
实过
Xi
紧日
Jinping's
子要求，
instructions and continue
当好
to
铁
keep
公
our
鸡，
belts
打
tightened,
好铁算盘，
to
把每
ensure
一分钱
that
都用在刀
every
刃
penny
上，
is
紧
used
要处。
where they are needed most.
一个是
First,
边境预算，
we will
二是
tighten
硬化
the
执行
budget.，
三是盘活
Second,
存量，四是
we
做
will
好
ensure
常
strict
态。
enforcement. Third,
我们
we will
将
mobilize
同
unused
年重
funds.
启
And
编制预
fourth,
算，
we will conduct
削
regular
减或
evaluation.
抵消低效、无效支
We will
出，
strictly formulate
集中
budgets,
财力
eliminate
保障
inefficient and ineffective
国家的
expenditures, and
重大
concentrate
战略任
funds
务。
on the country's major
我们
strategic
将
tasks.
把牢预算支
We
出的
will
关口，
be strict
从
with
严控制部
expenditures,
门预算，
strictly
追加
control
调剂
the
事项。
additional adjustments to
除
departmental
应
budgets.
急救灾
and
等
ensure
特殊的
that
事项外，原则上不
No
出台
new
新
spending
的增
increase
值政策。
policy will be
严
introduced
禁超预
apart
算
from special
超标准
needs
安排
such
执
as
行。
emergency disaster relief.
我们将及时
Expenditures
清理
beyond
收
the
回
budget and
结余资
exceeding
金，
budgetary
不让
standards
资
will
金
be
卡在账
prohibited.
上睡觉。对结转资
We
金较
will
多的项目，
recover
相应
unused
减
funds
少
in a
预
timely
算
manner to prevent them from sitting
我
idle.
们将
Projects
按
with
季
large
评
amounts
估
of
中央部
carryover
门
funds
落实
will
过紧
see
日子
their
要
budgets
求的情
cut.
况，
The
强
central
化评估
department
结
will
果
be
应用，
evaluated on a
督促地
quarterly
方
basis regarding
积
how
极
well
推
they have
进过
managed
紧
to
日
keep
子
their
评
belts
估体系
tightened.
建设，
And
努力降低
local governments
行
will be
政
urged
运
to
行成本。
develop an evaluation system in this regard also to
谢谢
reduce
刘部长
administrative
和两
costs.
位副部长，
Thank
谢谢
you
各位
to
媒
our
体朋友。
ministers
今天
and
的
our
发布会
friends
就
from
到
the
这里，
press.
再见。
We come to the end of today's press conference.
You were listening to Chinese authorities briefing the media on major fiscal decisions for this year. Now, a couple of takeaways. Officials talked about the achievements made last year to support the economy and weather through the pandemic. Public budget revenue saw a 0.6% increase year on year. Officials say this year, in line with CPC guidelines, will see more efficient financial policies to build a modern socialist society. Now, but they did point out that we're in a volatile environment, but these can be mitigated by several measures, including boosting investment, transferring funds to needy people, improving tax policy and tax cuts, regulating government spending, and cutting debts. Now, I want to discuss these major fiscal decisions with Professor Liu Kun, the Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Professor Liu, it's always good to see you.
Right.
Now, how do you see China's approach to strengthening its fiscal policies this year? I mean, officials did point out that we are living in a volatile environment and there are still challenges ahead.
Well, fiscal policy is probably the most important tool within the hand of the government to address the economic growth issues. It involves a division of the power of spending between individual households, businesses versus the government. I think this year there's distinctive features that first of all, the budget will be tightly controlled so that the households, in terms of the consumption, business in terms of generating the revenue base, will be highly stimulated. And the other is that in terms of the spending, there has been a clear focus to support technological breakthrough, regional integration, the ecologically friendly type of operation in business, and also, more importantly, to support the social welfare program in terms of education, the medical supply, and the catering to the vulnerable people like the elderly and the elder ones. So this is really highly encouraged and welcomed by this business and also the whole nation, because the government is getting so serious to ensure the effectiveness and efficiency of their spending, and also play leniency on the collection of tax from the nation.
Now, China has managed to keep its overall deficit to GDP ratio within 3%. What does this indicate about the country's economic resilience?
Yes, in economics, people talk about the expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. I think China is really maintaining a very delicate intricacy in managing such type of issue. 3% of the deficit is manageable because the economic growth is expected to exceed 5%. So therefore, it's not going to flood the market with more of the monetary circulation. But in the meantime, it does serve as the impetus to allow the circulation of money to support business and consumption. And more importantly, it's there to support the social welfare program. And I'm highly impressed as an educator that the government is stepping up more of the funds to support education from preschool to high school. And this is something that is impressive, because when China is going for high quality growth, we need high quality capacity of the people to match it.
Now, tax cuts is always of interest to people. How can the government improve its policies to support businesses and individuals?
Well, that is why it is a delicate situation, because the government's fiscal policy and in terms of spending is supported by largely the tax collection program from individuals and businesses. But while you really are there to offer tax cuts, it means the income is going to shrink. So to build a virtuous cycle to enlarge the tax base by supporting businesses and by encouraging consumption so that the consumption can be translated into more of the productivity of the businesses, and businesses generate more revenue to support the tax program, is something that is most important. So in that, it is not only the how government leverage the monetary and fiscal policy, but also to continue the institutional reform to unleash some of the artificial burdens on the businesses and consumption, for example, to alleviate consumers of their future worries in terms of medical incidents and education, and also to reduce the cost of doing business by providing the enabling environment for particularly the smaller businesses. And this is something that's there to build the virtuous cycle by enlarging the tax base so the government can really leverage on those tax dollars to effectively to support the public goods.
Now, officials also pointed out slow domestic consumption, partly due to the pandemic as well. What are your thoughts on China's proposal to boost consumption? They did mention like lowering tariffs, improving housing, and etc.
Well, consumption is supported by the income level and also by consumers' confidence in terms of the job security and also the job promotion program. So the most important issue is that to ensure that people have regular income based on the stable job opportunities. And the other is that people will make decisions on their purchase based on the future income that they can expect. So stable job and also more of the income increase. And then more critically, it is, people tend to save money just in case of some of the misgivings that the family and the individuals may encounter. So to alleviate the future worries by providing a stronger social welfare belt, by providing the future, by providing the alleviation of the future worries of the children education, medical care, and provide the better housing program, and that can really unleash the spending power of the people so that they will be able to spend with confidence instead of with jitteries.
All right, Professor Liu, thank you very much for your time and your perspectives.